Thanks, Alicia. That's really nice of you. And sorry, I was just on the minutes there. I'm just going to attempt to share my screen if that's okay. So if you just give me a second just to get all that sorted, I'll be with you very shortly. I'm sure you've had this all throughout today.
Yes, we're just discussing how people are so much more, what's the word, patient with each other these days than they used to be, because everybody's had their own Zoom shocker at some stage, haven't they?
That's right, yeah. So I think can you?
Yeah, we can see that. That's perfect. Thank you, Alistair. Yeah.
Perfect. Just resize it slightly. Okay. Well, thanks, Alicia, and thanks for the invite to speak today. And I hope everyone's had a good day so far. So yes, I'm going to talk to you for probably around about half an hour, just under half an hour, about social media advocacy. And I've got some tips and best practice from a program that I've run at the university now for a couple of years. So I've got a number of slides, and I'm happy to take any questions at the end of the presentation if that works for everyone. So just a brief intro to me and my role at the university and my background. So I'm the senior social media manager at the university, and I work in a central division of marketing, comms and student recruitment. And I've been working in this area for about 10, 12 years now, originally starting out as a journalist, and I moved into the public sector, originally at the Environment Agency, where I did a mix of digital work in a regional office. And I've since worked in higher education, so about 7 or 8 years now in higher ed, specialising in managing digital communities and growing social media capabilities in organisations. So Manchester, we're one of the largest UK universities, more than 40,000 students, 12,000 staff. Most staff, if not all, are working from home at the moment. So it's been a difficult period really for a lot of universities. But we're a university where research has a real global impact, and where all of our activities is enriched by commitment to social responsibility. So we're a high-ranking Russell Group institution, and we recently had our social and environmental impacts ranked as best in the UK and 8th in the world by the Times Higher Education. So we're a large institution. Some of our faculties are actually bigger than most universities, or some universities in the UK. And that means we have a large number of digital channels, lots of websites, and also lots of social media channels. So that's everything from our corporate accounts, which my team run, to faculty, school, department, and also subject level accounts as well. Then there's our staff as well. So there are our academic staff who will use social media to further their research impacts, to network with other academics, and those are really where a lot of the fun stuff comes out of social media at the university, from the academic use of these profiles. So we've got quite a large imprint with social media in terms of followers. We have around 1 million users across our many different channels, and that includes channels like the Jodrell Bank Observatory, which is one of the sites at the university used for teaching and research. So what I'm going to look at today in 25 minutes or so is try and define what social media advocacy is, why it matters, how to get started, and who to involve in a program that you might think about running in your organization, some tools and techniques, and then some tips from the program at Manchester, but also another program in the public sector. So if we take a step back, really, to start with, and look at the wider picture of social media. So it's been around for quite a while now, 20 odd years, and it's really evolved from the early days of MySpace, Bebo, Friends Reunited. I don't know if anyone will own up to being on Friends Reunited, but that was all about, that period of time was all about kind of reconnecting, maybe with school friends, developing an online profile. And we've gone through things like Facebook and LinkedIn becoming, quite major business tools, where we can target messages to different audiences very quickly, with quite small budgets. And also around, the advent of Twitter and the switch from organizations having the power in terms of communications to the consumer now having a lot more power in how reputations are maintained across digital platforms. The key thing, I guess, we're going to focus on now is audiences. So audiences are now becoming content producers, and organizations are working with their audience, whether that's internally or externally, to create content and talk about organizations more positively. So that's really what we're going to focus on today. And that's where advocacy comes in. So what is it and why does it matter? Apologies to start with if this is quite a hard thing to read on the screen, but this is a screenshot from a LinkedIn post from a member of staff at Patagonia, which is a clothing company. I think it's headquartered in the US. And it talks about the way that Patagonia has looked after people coming back from maternity leave. So it's a very positive post, and it was one of those posts that went viral on LinkedIn. You see them now and then where they've got thousands and thousands of comments, lots of shares and engagements. So you probably look at this and think, well, that's just really good PR, isn't it? And have they encouraged the member of staff to post that? I think either way, it is really good PR for the organisation, and obviously that member of staff has, unprompted, you would expect, posted that herself, and it's resulted in some media coverage, etc. And so that's an example of what advocacy might mean. It's an example of how having a very positive set of stories or positive experiences can really help you and place your organization in a good place. When I started out in my career, in the public sector particularly, at the Environment Agency, I worked really closely with area managers in different regions and really encouraged them to try out social media. One of those I remember working with was Dave here, who's an area manager in the Midlands, and he very quickly built up a really good following on social media, and particularly on Twitter. He's very authentic. He knows the local area really well. And the reason I flashed him on the screen is because he uses social really well. He's got a very image-led approach to his channel. But also there'll probably be people within your organization that are like him. They may not have the following that he has, but they may be out there creating content. And what you're able to do here, I think, is build a two-way relationship with them. So ask them to share your content, and then vice versa. I think it's a really good way to build up connections and build that two-way engagement, as I said, with staff. So there's some interesting data about employee advocacy and how they can drive improvement. So the key things here are the brand and reputation health, which you kind of expect from a program that's being boosted. Employee engagement, so people are a bit more engaged by being delivered content regularly, or given key messages to talk about. The other one is around, or the top one here is actually it might save us money in the long run without having to advertise consistently. Have to spend that advertising budget on social media if we actually put our resources into an advocacy program. So there's some interesting things there on why you might set something up. And then just to add to that, really, I think for me, at the moment, in this kind of heightened sense of, we're all kind of having a difficult period, I think there's more than ever, there's more and more negative comments attached to organizations and organizational social media accounts. So I think now more than ever, I think having your staff, alumni, whoever it is, sharing positive news, I think that's a really good thing for us to focus on in what is a sea of negativity if you go onto Twitter some days. And I think another point is that we've seen a change in the customer journey. So consumers are now looking to their friends and family for recommendations. When we buy something nowadays, we're going on review sites, and social media is a really strong product tool for research. And the other thing is that people want to talk to people and employees rather than necessarily the brand or the organization. So I think having people on social media who can represent you is a very positive thing. And then we go into similar areas in terms of trust. So this is a screenshot from the 2021 Edelman Trust Barometer, really, really useful document. And on the whole, it actually showed that during the pandemic, trust has fallen across the board. So particularly in trust in societal leaders, which is what we've got here. So, government leaders, for example, there is some distrust there and a growing distrust in people like journalists as well. However, local leaders are more likely to be trusted, even though some of that has dipped in the last year or so. So, for example, people in my community, my employer, CEO of my employer, scientists as well, intriguingly. But I think also in the report, it states that local technical and academic experts tend to have higher trust and credibility than most figures in the actual across the board. So I feel there's a real opportunity here for education organizations to raise the profile of your experts and help improve the reputation of your organization, put them at the heart of your content, and also deliver content to them to share. And this could have benefits for brand tracker, reputation surveys, NPS scores, etc., and industry rankings if you can get people sharing in a systematic way. So this section here, I'm just going to go through a few pointers from our program at the university. So whilst I go through the section, maybe have a think about the types of staff you might engage, types of alumni you might engage with this kind of program. What types of content might you make available to them if you were to run something? And also just a point that the staff that you do engage with this type of activity, it might not be, it might be the ones that need the most help. So it might be the ones that want to do social media, but they just don't have the time or whatever. So, and it might not be really savvy practitioners with an existing presence, but have a think about this as we go through. So again, it goes back to what do we mean by an advocate? What are the characteristics? What I would say is it doesn't necessarily mean it's the people at the top of your organization, and it can be a mistake just to say, I want all of SLT to be part of this. For me, and what we tried to define it as at the university program was a stakeholder invested in the university, probably had an external or public facing role. So may have been going out doing events, for example. They may have a media profile, and they probably have some kind of strong network already, and they participate in community activity as well around the university, for example. So one example, one person I picked out here is Sheena. So Sheena's a professor of immunology. So she's very, very busy at the moment with all the vaccine stuff, and her research is gaining real big prominence over the last few months. So she's been part of the program from the beginning, and if you go to her Twitter account, she's got a really good account. She mixes up her content. So it's everything from where she's walking with her dog day to day to take a break, her research outputs, her engagement work, and she'll also share content from us, from the university. So she'll share brand messages that she feels closest to, so projects, campaigns, etc. So how to get started on something like this? So the first thing is actually to understand who is out there, who is in your organization that's sharing already, and where are they sharing it. So we found, to start with, that Twitter was the easiest place to understand this kind of thing. So building a Twitter list of your prominent staff was a good start. You could understand what they were sharing, what types of content they were getting involved with and talking about. A bit of stalking on LinkedIn as well was required to begin with, for the same kind of reasons, to understand who was on there and what they were talking about. We started small, so we had a small group of advocates to begin with. So we worked in phases, really. We started out with people, what we call our friends. So in terms of our, we actually went for quite a few comms managers to begin with, people who knew how to use social, quite savvy already, but they could actually help us drive the program in different areas as well. So they could actually help us connect with different academics across the university as well. So they were phase one, then we went to academics in phase two, and then finally to the senior leaders in phase three. And a key thing was to, yes, ask them what motivates them to share, what kind of messages are they happy to share and feel attached to. And that was really enlightening in terms of how we set up our content. And a big thing with this, with any kind of program like this, is to make it exciting and make people feel special and feel like you're actually building something, and feel like they're part of something. I think that was much easier when we were all on campus, because we were able to put on training events. We were really good at sending monthly roundups of content, and basically get together as often as we could. But that's been a lot harder in the last 12 months. But I do think it's an opportunity to really tie in things like learning and development. Say, we've got this app, we've got this program. It's a really good opportunity for you to learn a new skill and help build your own profile as well. So just a couple of tools and techniques, just to run through. I've got three here. There are other providers out there, but these are the three kind of tools that I would recommend having a look at to start with. So the top two, the LinkedIn and Hootsuite products, they're both paid for products. Though I have heard a rumor that Elevate is going to be built into company pages from this year, so that might be worth something to keep an eye on. but they both work in a very similar way. They allow an admin to curate content from their organization, share that content to their advocates, who can then post it to their own network. So this is the fundamental thing about it, really, that you can get the content to a select number of staff. It's pre-written, it's pre-made for them, and then they can share that out. Another way you could use this is using something like Teams. This is a cheaper option, obviously, if you have it in your organization. So you could build a group within Teams and share content to that group regularly. The top two are a lot more intuitive. They usually all the content can be sent to these people very, very quickly and very directly. Perhaps a bit more work with the Teams option. So we've been running this program now since the start of 2019. So, and we've been using the Hootsuite Amplify program. So that's what we've built our program into. And we've been working with 80 staff at the university. So we still have quite a small number of people using it. And we've included senior leaders, academics, comms people, and also students in the program. So this is an example of the types of content that we share through the program. So everything from research stories to more brand reputation, good stories, content about our hardship funds, that sort of things, rankings. So it's all kind of really good, positive stuff about the university, and we want people to share that onto their networks. So when users receive a piece of content, there are two ways for them to receive that. One is through a mobile app, which you can see on the right-hand side. So this is just a screenshot of what it'll look like. So the content is pre-written, so the copy is there, and also there's a default image which is related to the article, and then a URL which is tracked in our Google Analytics, so we can understand the level of traffic that's coming from these pieces of content. And the key thing to point out here is that we have encouraged people to personalize their content as well. So rather than just share it without really thinking about it, we want them to really read the content, understand it, and then, if possible, personalize that as well and put a personal message alongside it. And then the sharing options are below. So you can share to all of the main social networks. Instagram is grayed out in this example, but you can share to Instagram. And there's been some new features added recently where you can add to WhatsApp and other messenger style apps as well. So the opportunities to share are growing all the time. So I guess a key question that we asked ourselves at the beginning was, how many people do we want to use this program? A key question, I think, is authenticity. And do you want hundreds of your staff to be sharing the same message? So we were quite mindful and we were quite keen on just having a small number of people involved to mitigate any sort of negative impacts around authenticity. So how did we evaluate this? How do we know it actually brought something to the organization and was a positive? So there were various ways we could do that, and one of the key ways was to measure the engagement. So we had some specific KPIs on the number of articles, the number of reads, shares, URL clicks, and then the adoption rate of the app. So how many people from who we met and engaged with, how many actually went on to adopt the app. Another consideration is another thing to think about with your objectives is this a traffic driver for you? It's been relatively good for us around traffic, but it hasn't been in the hundreds of thousands, of website hits. I think for a lot of commercial companies who use these programs, that is their sole consideration. So we were more about maybe the softer side of how a program like this and the community side of it. So there are sort of quantitative ways of you evaluating, but we were, like I say, much more looking at building a community, offering a service really to our key members of staff, and trying to help them with their digital profiles and help them with their learning and development. So a few lessons for us, and I've already mentioned these already really in various ways, but I think start small. We started with 80 and we've continued with that through the last 2 years. We've had a few people drop out for various reasons. Some, there's a natural churn. Sometimes people will leave the organisation. So we've just replaced those people with relevant colleagues as we've gone forward. Content is obviously a big part of this. So you've got to work hard on how much content you've got available. We found that we were able to repurpose a lot of content. So we weren't necessarily having to create new stuff all the time. And we found that about 3 per week was about the right amount. I think any more than that, and people probably were just switching off a little bit. From a personal perspective, a professional perspective, it really helped me internally build relationships and get people to understand the team's work a lot more. People, universities can be quite siloed, so being able to get out, meet people was fantastic, and develop those relationships. That has been harder, I think, because of lockdowns and things like that. So looking forward to getting back to the office when we can. And just to follow up on this as well, this is a really interesting example from Transport for Greater Manchester, and they've had a similar, well, they've gone for a different approach, where perhaps a more organic approach to this. So they've engaged with their staff and asked them to use a hashtag, Team TFGM, when they post on social media. So these screenshots are from LinkedIn, and they've chosen to use LinkedIn as a vehicle for this. So if you search that hashtag there, you will find hundreds of examples of staff talking positively about the organisation, and that's really, really positive from a HR perspective, PR perspective. What we found as well is that staff are more likely to use professional networks like LinkedIn, Twitter as well, but LinkedIn was certainly a place that people are more comfortable sharing content. Definitely much more than Facebook, which, for most people is a very personal network. And then going to wrap up shortly, but there are other ways this could be developed, and the idea of understanding your hot topics within an organisation. If you go onto your LinkedIn company page, for example, or any LinkedIn company page, you now get this My Employer tab on the left-hand side. This is really interesting, and it gives you a lot of interesting data, and also gives you things like trending co-worker content. So it's understanding what some of your co-workers are sharing, what they're talking about, etc. So it's worth having a look if you haven't seen this type of content already. And I think it's where LinkedIn are trying to build a bit of a niche around building these types of internal communications mechanisms into their platform. So it's a simple question, but it's, who are your key advocates? Are you running programs like this? You may be actually doing a lot of this stuff already, but and who do you think would be a good advocate for your organisation on social media? I'll leave you that question as I finish up this presentation. There's a couple of resources there. I think Alicia will be able to distribute this afterwards. The trust barometer is in there. It's very interesting, and some advice and guidance in the other 2 links. So yeah, just to that's my email address as well. If anyone wants to get in touch, I'm obviously on LinkedIn as well, so if you want to reach out directly, I'm more than happy to have a chat outside of this.
Fantastic, thank you, Alistair. And for the first time today, I've actually got